Okay, so we are now recording. Okay, very good. So approval of minutes. I will entertain a motion to approve
I'll
for the
make that
two. Was that Charlie?
Yep.
Hi, Brian.
Lafredo, that pretty much means you have to second because you two are the
I'll
only
second.
regular. Thank you.
Good job.
In favor? Aye.
Aye.
Terry, you got the agenda from me?
I did, but I'm having trouble with all kinds of stuff. So Leslie's just reading them off, the bullet points off for me. All right, what was the first bullet point after approval of minutes, Leslie?
May 12th train wreck presentation.
Okay, so that is the next upcoming thing. I'm sure you've all seen the flyer and the links and everything. That is 1 week from tonight. The UConn students are going to do their final presentation for their project. We're going to have the youth groups from the Putnam Lions, what is that called? Interact, I think, club. I actually have no idea what they've been doing. They have done something independently. They've dealt a little bit with Steph Stroud, and John Kaczynskis made the hookup there. So I'm curious to see that myself. There is going to be some live polling. I did upgrade it to a webinar so that we could gather a little feedback on what the students present. And then Steph and Elizabeth and a little bit me, but really mostly them, are going to present the concept of the Trailtown Action Plan. And then, then following that presentation, I've got all my material to write the grant for the interpretive signs to submit by the 5th of June. So that's the big schmear. So I assume everybody on this call is already planning on dialing in, but if you were not, and you can, I hope that you do. We had a pretty good one in November. I forget how many it was, but it felt pretty well attended, and there was a lot of good discussion. So, it'll be a happy thing.
Tara, you should get that over to the Last Green Valley if you haven't already, so that they can send that out to people who might be interested. I think that's kind of why we had a lot of participation in the last one. It was shared through multiple avenues.
Yeah, Lyanne is in the Trainwreck Park working group, so she certainly gets all of those, but I'll just double check with them tomorrow to see if they're able to share it to their network as well.
Yeah.
We've
Tara,
had
what
some
time-
good
what time is
amplification
that
from
meeting
Winnie
next
and,
Wednesday?
I'm sorry, what was that, Brian?
What time is that meeting next Wednesday?
I believe we set it for this time, 6:30, but let me go. I have to find it in somebody's Facebook post since I can't get into my work system. So annoying.
I saw it today.
Yeah, I've seen a couple shares today. So here we go. Yeah, 6:30 to 8, same time as these regular meetings.
All right, yeah, I have another meeting that I might get into this one a little late, but I should be able to see it.
Okay. I think this is Ken coming in. Ken, is that you?
That'd be me. I'm having computer issues.
Yeah, me too. I'm not on my work system. I'm on my home system right now.
Yeah, the link on the agenda doesn't take you right to Zoom.
Yeah.
Yes, we've discovered that as well.
Yeah. And it wasn't on the agenda website either for the town.
Yes, we discovered that as well. We discovered a lot of things just in the last few minutes. So Dave Quinn is going to ask Pete Harry, because I had to text him because that's in my work files as well, the draft of the ZMAP, and I know that's why the other two Brians are here. So hopefully that'll come through soon. I'm just going to keep bouncing back and forth to my Hotmail to check on it to see if it comes through. Anybody else have anything they want to ask or comment on the next Trainwreck Park workshop next week?
there going to be some sort of a dress rehearsal, or it's just,
There is on Monday, and the only people required to attend that are the people who are presenting, but anybody from the Trainwreck Park group certainly may. And I can send that link out again if I haven't already to the larger group, or Steph might have sent it out to the larger group, but I can send it too.
thanks.
Anybody else, anything else there? Okay,
LED sign and then the 11th Village Maker Fair.
okay, so the LED sign, everyone here will be pleased to know, I am sure, that a deposit has been given to Graphics Unlimited over in Putnam. They were the ones who quoted the original sign and then updated it so that we had the new version that uses most of the existing structure. He is coming next week to take a look at the sign in situ, mostly to see what is already there for electric connections, so that he can let us know what we need to let an electrician know needs to be done. The agreement was at the Board of Selectmen's meeting where it was voted on that we get 3 local quotes from electricians, not actually go out to bid, which is what I mistakenly said, but just because of the estimated low cost, just to get quotes to sort of, be fair about it. And then we're off. I don't know exactly how long it'll take to do yet. I think that's part of what he's coming next week to figure out the schedules as well. But certainly sooner rather than later, that is going to be a thing that is done. So yay.
Yay.
That's great.
Yay.
That's great.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge improvement. Everybody agreed that it fit in the parameters of the original CARES Act money, of which there is still quite a bit left. So yeah, public information system coming to a town hall near you.
Yay.
Tira,
What
has
did
it
you
been discussed who's going to be the keeper of entering that data? Like, I know right now, I don't know how he got elected, but Rainey Moran changes out the signs, like to let us know that we're closed, or like to put, taxes due.
That's because Rainey has all the lettering
Okay.
up in his office. He's been doing
Well,
it for years.
He's been doing
It
it for
probably has something to do with it. It's the Lions too, but yeah, it's not going to be Rainey. I think multiple people can be enabled, but it makes sense to me that the main admin would be
the select.
Marie. Yeah, with Kelly as a backup for DPW issues. I believe that you can have multiple users enabled, though.
Honestly, I don't think you want to have multiple users, because if people go in and they take something down that needs to be up or they override it, I really think that all of it should flow through one person. And, because that's what's tricky, is that right now, Rainey might put up on the sign that the only thing we really put up on it is that we're closed and when taxes are due. But now we have the ability to put up meetings on it and to change it more often. So I think if we do have it, there will have to be a conversation about when are things getting changed and how soon are things going up on it and what does that mean? You can't just put up, you have a meeting that's coming up 3 weeks from now and let it sit up there when maybe somebody's got something coming up in a week, or.
Right.
So I do think that there will have to be, a separate meeting, and maybe among department heads and a kind of a, I don't know, system put in place for that. But that's not for this group. That's, I think, department heads and town hall staff. So.
That does make wonderful sense, though. I think that it's probably the best way to go.
Oh, yeah, focus person and a backup.
Yes.
Yeah, of course, you definitely want to back up, but I'm just thinking, we don't want like 5 people and then, I go in to put some, rec event up there, but really, forgetting that the town hall being closed needs to be up there or whatever, so I think just the timing of it, but
Yeah.
we'll figure it out. It's a department head thing once it goes in. Yay, it's going in.
Yeah, I mean, that's the exciting piece for this group, of course. And the rest of it, you're right, Leslie, is background stuff. I have a text here. Can somebody send Amy the link? And again, because I'm locked out of my work system, I can't
Okay.
really do that. I've only
Sarah,
got
I
her
just,
information saved here.
You also
I just
don't,
sent to Renee the thing we had, so I told her it wasn't a live link.
you
But I
also,
just
Okay.
texted that right now.
you don't need a live link. You can go to zoom.com and enter the
Yeah.
meeting number and
Yeah.
enter the password.
That's
No, I
what I
know.
do.
That's how I got in.
It's annoying, but you can do it.
Yeah, it's just slow to do it, that's all.
Agreed, yeah.
Well,
I-
it's more that I don't have her contact information saved in any of my home systems, just in my
I
work
can text
systems,
her.
so I
I
can't
can
get to her.
text
All right, thank you. We'll give Leslie a second, and then we will. I mean, anybody have anything else on the sign? I mean, it's almost like we've been talking about it so long. It's almost unbelievable that it's going to happen in some way. Like, oh yeah, we're just getting a sign now.
Yeah, I
Okay,
mean,
go.
just to figure out who's gonna operate it is one of the least things to worry about. Getting the sign done is gonna be great.
I like the
Yeah, it's
article
like-
in the paper on it. Nice job.
There was an article in the paper on it.
Yeah,
Last Friday's Villager with a photograph.
Oh, I missed that.
I didn't know that.
Oh,
Was
so
it on
I
the
wonder
front
if that
page
means
below
that
the fold. I think it was on the front page below the fold, but I
Yeah,
don't
it was.
remember. Yeah,
front page.
Interesting. I
And
don't
it-
think I sent a presser out on it.
you know
No,
what? It
they were-
might have been Graphics Unlimited that sent it out because
No.
they mentioned in it, and it doesn't really give a lot of particulars about who in the town. It just shows an artist's rendition of the sign.
It's
And-
it's because they were on the selectmen's meeting. Typically,
Ah.
press will sometimes go to the select or go and read the minutes. So they probably went to listen to the minutes or went and saw the minutes and then pulled an article from that.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Ah, yes, that would make sense.
Winnie's done it a few times and like, they're on it. So they listen to the selectmen's and then if they see news in it that they want to put out, they put that out.
Yeah, and now that you mention it, that was very prominent in the text that the Board of Selectmen approved to move forward with it and recognized EDC as the motivator of it.
Yeah, it was from the meeting.
Yeah, so it must have been that, Leslie. Right. Well, that's too bad. I would have put. Well, it's probably still in the copy room, last week's copy. So I'll take a look. Anybody have anything else vis-a-vis the sign?
No,
Nope,
All right,
you'll keep us
let's- What, Charlie?
You'll keep us posted when it's ready to go up. We'll know about it.
Oh, of course.
Up next is 11th Village and Maker Fairs. Reevaluating schedule and fees, and then outside organizers. So I guess I can start. I can just give a recap of the Maker Fair. It was a great event. We had 80 vendors registered, or technically, 81 registered. 3 did not show up. All of our food trucks showed up. So we had 2 food trucks, an ice cream truck, and a popcorn, and some live music. Thanks to everyone who came out and volunteered that day. Jamie Sinay from our fire marshal estimated that we had around approximately 4,000 people come throughout the 5 hours, 5.5 hours that the event was running. Winnie was there and gave a great, they did a walkthrough. So there's a video, an 8-minute video of the event, and took a lot of great pictures. And then also Jeff Bolte at the very end of the day came by with his family and put his drone overhead and took some photos from the sky. So that was great to see. It wasn't the full effect of the huge crowd because it was the end of the day, the last half hour, but but it shows the layout and is good for us in the planning side of things, and to show for future vendors, to show them what it looks like, the layout looks like. We met as a committee for a wrap-up meeting. We'll have one more wrap-up meeting, but we have some things that we improved on for this year, and then things that we want to continue to improve and continue to work on for next year. But the plan is to make the Maker Faire as it exists, an annual event the first weekend in May. So it'll stay as it is, and just making some minor adjustments and tweaks to continue to improve the flow of traffic and the vendor and customer experience. So again, thanks to everyone who came out. It was a great day.
So before we move on to the 11th Village stuff, I think everybody on the call was there. So, if anybody else has any feedback, this is the good time for it.
Yeah, I had one thing. I mean, first of all, I was telling everybody what a great job Leslie and the group did, because, all the vendors were impressed. It went off pretty well. I have a suggestion of shifting the time a little, though. Because if you notice, by 2:30, people were packing up. Maybe we could think about going 10 to 3 instead of 11 to 4.
You mean vendors were packing up, or the crowd had thinned out?
Well, both. Even vendors were packing up.
Yeah.
If vendors were packing up,
They
shouldn't have been. Right.
They were. I mean, not half of them or anything, but as the crowd thinned, a few of the vendors were packing up.
Started to pack up. I mean, the big thing is that no vendor vehicles were allowed until 4 o'clock. So that's the big thing. They couldn't really completely pack up or leave. There's some places where they do have the ability to bring their car in and just pack up and get out of there an hour early as the crowd starts to thin. Yeah, we've talked about the time a bit. To be honest, Brian, we're there at 7:30, and we probably needed to even be there at 7. So
Yeah.
I'm not inclined to move it any earlier.
It was just something I noticed. You're in charge, so.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think that we did, I agree, it did start to thin out a lot at 2:30 or 3 o'clock. But I think that kind of is just what happens at these things. The last hour is difficult, but.
Yeah, and realistically, that is every show. It doesn't matter what hours they are, for whatever reason, the last hour. And I've been at shows that end at 3, 4, 5, even as late as 6, some summer shows. Doesn't matter. The last hour is the one that peters out.
And we did cut it a half an hour. So we did last year it went till 4:30, and we definitely saw the last hour was really dead, so that we cut it a half an hour. So if anything, I wouldn't shift it to earlier, if anything. And Brian, I'll certainly take the suggestion to the committee. I think even cutting it an hour and going to 3, just 11 to 3, but that, does shorten things. We did have some people driving in at 4:30, 4:45, even 10 after 5. Tira and I were there. The last vendor left at 5:15, and at 10 after 5, 2 cars drove in looking for the fair.
Yeah, and actually I drove by on Riverside and saw the last vendor packing up, and it was after 5.
Yeah, they say till 5:15, 5:20. Yeah.
But they had a big setup, that particular vendor. I mean, and that happens too. But you don't care how late the vendors get out, as long as they are there the whole time. The other thing about shaving an hour is, even though that last hour tapers off, and I've made this observation a couple of times now, because obviously I did both and I've done several of these. The last hour always tapers off, but this one was not like they usually are. It was not like dead as doornails and everybody is pacing and just waiting to slam their tables down and pack up. I looked at my phone and went, oh my God, it's 5 of 4. There were still people walking. There were still people coming in. How much buying was being done at that point, I don't know. That's much harder to gauge. But I never felt like it was that ghost town effect. And, every hour that you trim is also an hour somebody can't sell anything.
Correct. Yeah.
So there is a balance there. And
Yeah.
it's only a 5-hour business day. I mean, it's super long for us that work it, but the actual commerce that occurs all happens within 5 hours. And that's, I don't know, some people might like to do a short show, and nobody wants to do a longer show, but you know, the 5 or 6 hour show, I think is a good standard.
When will we have the feedback from the vendors?
We sent the survey out on Monday. We have 33 responses.
Great.
Oh, good.
They had some good comments and suggestions. The biggest piece of data of the 33, only one of them gave below a 3 on the, we did a rating of 1 through 5 on how they felt with satisfied with sales. So one person gave a 1, everybody else gave a 3 or higher. Everything else was scored 3 or higher. Communication before the event, communication day of, 1 through 5 on pleased with foot traffic was 3 and higher, and then pleased with sales 1 through 5. And then they gave a section for comments, and we wrote those down on our wrap up meeting. And of the 33 responses, even the person who ranked a 1 with pleased with sales, 100% of the people said they were going to come back, or that they would do an event again. So, we have 33 vendors. So I'll send that out one more time. We got about 50% of our vendors to do the survey last year. So hopefully we'll get, another 7 to 15 surveys back, and then, be able to see really what 50% of them, how they felt. Just in chatting with vendors, I didn't get to everyone, but I know of 2 folks who weren't interested in returning. But at that same time, we did actually have a wait list of 6 people, so we'll be okay.
Now, how much did they pay to set up?
$25 for a Thompson resident and $40 for a non-resident, and that fee did go up. There was, that was the early bird fee. It went up by $5, I think, like April 1st or March 1st or something.
That's still a bargain. The only thing that maybe we could do the next time, at the main table where we do the raffle and stuff, is get maybe some input from the people that come through.
Yeah,
what they like and dislike.
I agree with you, Ken. I'd love to have, this is getting real wild, but I'd love to have some, National Honor Society students just polling the crowd that day. Oh, do you have a few minutes to, take a survey, and just asking, how did you hear about it? Why did you come in? Where are you from? And why did you come into town? Just to sort of gauge who are we attracting and how are they hearing about it? Because we know from how we're spending our marketing dollars recruiting vendors. We know we ask them, how did you hear about it? But, we spend dollars on Winnie, on Shopper's Guide, on, various advertising avenues. And I'd like to know how people are hearing about it from, attendees. So I agree with you. I'd love to brainstorm a way to poll the crowd, even if it's just a random selection and we try to get, 50 people throughout the day.
Yeah, if you get somebody with a couple of clipboards walking through the crowd.
Yep.
And taking a survey, that'd be great. And if you're getting some feedback of what they think of what they like and dislike of, the type of vendors that are coming in, or
what did you come in for?
What were they expecting it to be?
Yeah.
Things of that nature. That can go a long way.
Yeah, I agree with you, because of course getting the vendors is important, but if people, if we don't do that, then we're in danger of people no longer coming because, it's the same kind of vendors and the same people. And I'm not, they didn't have the kind of stuff I was looking for, or then we lose our audience. The only other thing I'll say is that we did do the 10% off flyer to the restaurants. So we had a flyer we were handing out that advertised 10% off visiting the restaurants on Riverside Drive, the 4 restaurants there, and of LB's, Milltown, Our Father's Table, and Drafters. And then on the other side was other events we have coming up in Thompson. And we handed out probably around 750 flyers, obviously just one to a family or one to a group. And we went to, Cheer and I went to Drafters to grab a bite to eat after the event, and they said it was the busiest Saturday that they've had since they've been open. So we haven't spoken to the other restaurants, but that was a good sign to know that, you know, people being in town, you know, they stayed in town and they ate at those restaurants. So
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and that is obviously part of the purpose of doing these things. I mean, the enjoyableness of the event itself is important. The activation of the park itself is important because it makes people feel good in the moment where they are. But events, successful events, also have a lifting effect on local economies in this way. And it's nice to see that simple things like that do have that intended effect. That was, I was glad that Leslie thought to ask while we were there. So yeah, that was a nice sign for us.
the last thing I'll say about the Maker Faire before we move on to the 11th Village is, and this kind of ties into it, is that we did hand out to every vendor, and then along with the survey that we emailed out, we let them know about additional vendor opportunities. So although the Maker Faire currently is a one time a year where it's just artisans, you know, handmade items happening the first week in May, we do have a lot of other opportunities for vendors to set up in Thompson, besides the 11th Village, which Chira can report on, is that we are going to welcome a limited number of vendors to be in Riverside Park on the tag sale day, the first weekend in August. And then they also could be up on the Thompson Common, up at the church. So so it's, you know, tag sailors could set up, or vendors, either one, a limited number of those. And then of course at Community Day, we have had some vendors in the past, but we're also really encouraging our vendors, again, saying that although it's not a craft fair specific, it is a family fun day, you know, with a variety of businesses and family activities and car show and bounce house, and that, again, that there's a good attendance at that event. So we have had a handful of vendors call this week to register for one or both of those. So that's going well. You know, again, they won't get as much promotion as the Maker Faire, but they certainly will get promoted, you know, again, the tag sale and obviously Community Day, of course. So
I have
Yeah.
observation. First of all, I thought that the size of the crowd combined with the weather made it just feel perfect. I didn't feel like I was in too big of a crowd after this past year with all of its uncertainty. The comment was actually two of them. One is about the inviting people to go to the local restaurants. And I'm glad that Leslie gave that report, but maybe next year or for similar events, we might consider having, instead of listing them all, making it kind of like a coupon that the visitor could hand to the restaurant so that
That's
they
what
can
they
help
had,
to get
Charlie.
a tally on what's going on.
yeah, it was.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, because Drifters said it was their busiest Saturday ever, but we don't know how many of them were out just because it was a nice day and how many of them came over from that.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe it's not necessary, but it could be a good barometer.
I mean, I was kind of hoping that they would collect it as a coupon.
Yeah, yeah.
But I don't know if they did or what. But yeah, I hear you, Charlie. Yeah.
You know, if we
Yeah,
suggest on the page that it's a coupon, you get 10% off when you turn this in.
Right. And say to the restaurants, we'd like you to collect it so we can
Yes.
have that data. Yeah.
Yes.
Right, because
Also,
the
I'm
flyer
very
had the
much-
first piece of that, but not the collection aspect at the end. Yes.
Yeah.
The gentleman who was the managing on the floor, Drafters, did say that they had seen a number of those.
Oh, good.
But you're right, since there had been no instructions to retain them so that we could figure out how many went to each. We don't know.
No, we don't. I'm very much interested in how we can branch out from this and do more activities throughout the town of Thompson that will be available to people after they've been at the Maker's Faire or before they go to it. And I've got one eye on a possibility of some sort of a bicycling event that would take place through the town, but I can't do that alone. So I'm looking for not in this group, but I'm looking for partners to help to organize something like that.
Yep.
Well, okay, so that's a good transition point to the other two pieces of this agenda item, which is the 11th Village and then retooling the schedule and also talking to outside organizers. So we'll take the 11th Village first because the first two sheds are on the ground, although neither of them is totally complete. Dave Eddy did put the door on the one that was dropped the day before the event, Monday, and I've got it padlocked now. So that security concern has been, that was on my mind all weekend. But nothing happened to it, so that's also good news. He told me that with the funds that he's been promised in this fiscal year, in other words, the deposit we've already given him and the remaining $3,000 in the EDC budget, he thinks he's gonna do another shed, just based on that. And he's going to come back and retrofit the facades and the metal roof to the Thompson Bank. He's working that out. He said it would take him, a couple of weeks, which is fine given the amount of work he's had at the Mason House. And we don't have anybody in there right now. One of the things that we did, which was prudent, was we did put the Historical Society in one of them and the Northeast Art Guild in another so that people could see how they look, operate. And apparently there were people interested in it. So I've started to make calls to some of the vendors who were there to offer those to them, the ones that Leslie and I went through the list and said, these are good candidates. Leslie, did you also send a follow-up email to all of the vendors? I know you were going to.
In this email that I sent on Monday that had the survey, it listed 3 additional vendor opportunities: the 11th Village, the tag sale, and Community Day.
All right, but not specifically like a fleshed out email about the 11th Village.
They've already gotten that. I certainly can send it again. They got it, a month ago when we first opened registration. But I certainly
it might be worth to send the dedicated email now that people have seen it, because it was an abstraction before. We might not get many hits off it. Again, it's still new, still working it out. We do have somebody in one of them for Fairy Fest at the end of August, and somebody had indicated they would take it around Community Day. So working a little slower than we'd like, but I think with only 2 on the ground, it's not that surprising. I'm also talking to Ann up at Teague to see if there's a way we can sort of move that into an entrepreneurship program through Teague. She said she'd been batting ideas like that around in her own head for a while. So once we work through a couple of other things, I'll probably connect with her on that. We just got to keep working it. And the history of installations like these across where they do exist is favorable, but everything always takes longer than you expect to get going. And we'll just do it. We'll make it work in whatever way we have to. The other piece of that is Leslie and Renee and I and Dino a little bit sat in for Jamie a couple of weeks ago to talk to some folks about making it so that outside organizers can easily plug their events in, so that field is, that park is always active, because it's well laid out for that kind of thing. I think anybody who was there saw that promenade works super well for this kind of vendor event, visit and walk down event, just because of the layout of it, right? It's long and skinny. There's a lot of asphalt. There's all that weird space against the chain link fence. We've been saying that all along. But, with a planning committee of 3 on staff, plus some volunteer support, we can't be doing that every weekend. I think having something every weekend or every other weekend, and we've discussed it before, also makes a difference to, getting that larger installation activated. But, we're working out what those parameters are. Fairy Fest is going to be a test for that. although to some extent she came on before we've set any parameters, so we might have to be a little flexible with her. But the main people we talked to in our meeting a couple of weeks ago is I've got a friend who was an appraiser on Antiques Roadshow, and he's got a friend who actually lives in Thompson who has organized events with him. So we presented them, you know, a list of parameters for organizers. You know, what do you need? Here's what it costs to rent. Here's what you have to have in terms of security details, blah, 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 blah. That's in development. So that's one of the things I'd like us to do a little talking about tonight, if anybody's got any ideas there. Leslie, you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, there's just a lot to flesh out before we, I think, I mean, it started, but a lot just to think about, as Tira said. I like the idea of having outside organizers come in, and because to do an event every month is just not possible given the other jobs that, you know, Renee and Tira and I have, and the volunteers that you all have, you know, and other projects that you have going on. So we're realistically, in my opinion, almost at our cap. We could maybe add one more as a town, but if we want to see something happening, you know, every month or every other week through the spring, summer, and fall, it's really going to be outside organizers with very little support from the town. You know, so now we have an event in May. We somewhat have an event with CT Trail Stay in June. We have the tag sale in August and Fairy Fest in August. You know, kind of on hold in July, and then you know, October we have our community day, and then November we have turkey trot. So we're pretty well maxed out, unless we have outside organizers coming in. So I think it's really going to be important to think about how to present the organizers with as clear instructions, and so we can be hands off, but also have it be a successful event. It's going to be what we really need to think about, how best to do that.
Thoughts, folks?
Yes, I have a question. How this 11th village is like, we're right now we're considering we'll be lucky if we could do it once a month or twice a month.
No, the 11th village is an installation, right? Those are open for registration now. We just don't happen to have takers, although we've had some interest, and we have some takers later in the season. So, you know, I got to do a hustle, right? I got to do a hustle to get some people to get in there on some of these earlier weekends. Those are currently open. However, the installation, the amenity, with only 2 sheds on the ground, because our budget only enables us to put a limited amount at a time, doesn't create the kind of impact that the whole completed row would have, you know, of 10 without supplemental events. So we have some supplemental events, as we've mentioned, and you can, you know, lump the summer concerts in there, even though we don't do vendors for those typically. You know, those are things that work together to activate the park, but for the sake of the vendors who would be interested, there's got to be a level of interest that gets generated until the thing that generates the interest is the installation itself. So, you know, those are difficult cogs to move together if we don't have the bandwidth, the personal bandwidth, organizational bandwidth, to do that organization ourselves. So that's a motivator for us to also bring in outsiders. But, you know, so now it's a third set of, you know, wheels to move together, and we're developing all of these programs at the same time. So, you know, growing pains are awkward,
Yes.
but once we have everything in place, then it gains its own momentum. It gains its own pattern, right, that people can fit into. But we're creating the pattern right now.
Okay, and at that point that we have it all up and running, it would be like every weekend, 10 businesses and the crowds that they could generate, or the traffic flow that they could generate would be self-sustaining? That's
Right,
like,
that's-
okay.
Right.
That's what I thought. Okay,
The 11th village itself, as designed, is 10 mini shops open theoretically from May through October. The way it is currently structured, you're able to rent one of the available sheds, which right now is 2, for a period of 2 or 3 weekends. 2 or 4 weekends with a couple of 3 weekend stints. Like this one, if we had had one, would have been an extra weekend because
Here's 5.
we tell vendors that in the agreement form that you're welcome to open up during the week, but it's the weekends are the commitment. And this one started on a weekend instead of on a Monday, so it's a little different, right? But again, we've got to inflate the interest through other avenues until it has its own momentum. So that's how we're approaching it right now.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Anybody else have anything else on that? I think we can go to the next topic probably.
I was just to say, as I made my rounds talking to vendors, I was explaining the 10 village concept because a lot of them hadn't noticed the 2 sheds yet. So hopefully they did take a look at them after we talked, so they could understand that they could have a business set up and lock the door and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think tomorrow I should have some more time than I have had in the first half of the week to call some more vendors. I've only directly contacted 2 that I thought were the ones most likely to bite. But I've been working on airline trail camp stuff for a couple of days, and it's taken a lot of my mental energy. Anyway, what's the next agenda point, Leslie?
65 Main.
65 Main, we had another presentation. Well, it wasn't even really a presentation. Another meeting with the Turtle Lot Trust. It was a joint meeting with the trustees and the Board of Education. As I think you guys are aware, the Board of Ed is very resistant to the idea of approving the transfer of the trust funds, and the way it is structured, they have the ability to scuttle it. It was, in the end, actually somewhat better of a result than I thought we were going to end up with, because I think that the Board of Ed is pretty well entrenched against it. Santos, I'll invite you to give your thoughts here as well. But in synopsis, the fact that I've got a couple of open grant applications right now that we're waiting on worked at least a little bit in our favor, to hear what the results were. One of those is a programming grant, and one of those is a pretty large request out of the recent appropriations round that Representative Courtney was soliciting. And I should know if we move on to the next round of that relatively soon, from what I understand. But Santos, you want to give your 2 cents in there?
I don't really have much to add right there. I think you hit the nail on the head. I thought, there was a lot of good feedback back and forth with various trustee members and Board of Ed members. I think they're still looking for just a little bit more data from Kira, which she's working on with the grant funding sources. And as soon as that data is collected, I think they'll be able to move on to next steps with making a final decision. But I thought there was a lot of positives, and then there was a little bit of combative information as well. But I think the needle was moved forward in a positive, slightly positive way the last go around, but we'll see what happens with the grant funding information that Tira collects.
Yeah, I mean, it's just going to be a hard slog. There's just some really entrenched resistance to sort of expanding the idea of what education means and what development means, and you know what your population should have access to. But some people are definitely permeable there, and that's where we're going to keep doing our work. For those of you who have not been by recently, you should go by that property, because the park and playground equipment that was funded with the Eastern Connecticut Association of Realtors grant finally went in the ground last week, and it looks pretty nice back there.
Nice and
It'll look
purple.
it'll look even nicer when the grass grows back in, but because they had to rip up so much to put the stuff down, but they did seed it, and we had some rain, obviously, so that should green up nicely. I poked my head down there when I went to give the sign to the DPW crew into the community garden, and the gardeners are gardening. We still have room in those plots, so if anybody hears anybody who would like to use them, we'd love to get them as full as possible. But the activity on the site will continue, right? So that's part of what anchors a location, is people using it. So if we're using the exterior, the resistance to rehabbing the structure may also decrease over time. So just, got to be patient. Anybody got anything else there? Hearing no further comment. What's next, Leslie?
Up next is marketing plan rollout update, Z-fold map, continued review of website pages.
All right, let me see if Pete Harry was able to get that text from Dave Quinn. No, this is so frustrating. I'm so annoyed that I couldn't log into my work system, because I have the draft of the Z-fold map that includes the reworked map in my email. But I think I need to reset my password from the office. It's so aggravating, because I was all excited to share that with you guys. In terms of the marketing, the reason it ties so closely to the Z-fold map is that the QR codes are going to lead us back to the town website, right? There's two of them on there. One is the Where to Eat QR code, which does have a page on our website as it exists. And the other is takes us to the page for visitors, which we want to rebrand as the Thompson CT Find Your Way page, right? Makes sense. That's work for us on the back end. And that's where we want to get the Sullivan and Lashane tie-in. At least that's how I understand the conversation. So I'm tossing that back out to the group to make sure we're all on the same page. Any one of you could unmute yourself at this point.
That's my understanding. Where we left it was that the next step was to create a separate page that was geared more towards visitors. We talked about our current website being forward facing for residents, and that we want to have a page that's more about, attractions for visitors.
Right, that's what I got too.
Tara, check your inbox. I just sent you that email with the 3 links on the 3 images on it. You should be able to have that.
Yeah, but you don't have the one that was sent today, do you, Charlie?
No, I'm sorry. I didn't see one today.
Yeah, that's the one I was going to share, because the one I had asked Pete Harry, and he did provide it for this meeting, was with the reworked map, and that was going to be our sort of version 1 final draft of the Thompson side to look at and review and make comments on. I was going to, hoping to do that tonight, but
Tara,
Dave Quinn got my text, but Pete Harry didn't.
what's the estimate of when those are going to go to print and be in our hands?
We're going to send them over to the printer sometime this month. According to the email that Pete sent me, late this afternoon, all 7 towns have gotten to this stage with the personalized sides. So we are going to have one more meeting to go over those next week, make sure everybody's happy. And then the side A, the common map for the entire airline trail, has to be done. And that's really Jean Davis of Connecticut RC&D, who has the veto power over that, although I'm sure she'll, as long as it's an accurate airline trail map, that she'll be happy. There's some requirements of the grant, like that it has to include information for ctvisit.com/Mystic Country, yada, 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 and Connecticut Deep, because it's a Connecticut Deep property, all that. But once those 2 things are done, it goes to the printer, and then it's like a 2 or 3 week turn. We have to have those back and paid for by the end of June, by the end of the fiscal year. So we are not going to, there's virtually no way we can hit Connecticut Trails Day, which was what I really, really wanted. We probably started about 3 weeks too late to hit Connecticut Trails Day to have a chance of it, but we will have them by the end of June. So, and each town who participated is going to get either 4,000 or 6,000 of their personalized town Z-maps, depending on the level they bought in, to be distributed in whatever way each town thinks is correct. So obviously we'll have some at places like, go ahead.
I think that we need to, maybe this committee should put on its June schedule then to have a conversation about how those 4,000 or 6,000 are going to get divided and how many years do we want those to last. Do we want to put 2,000 away and just say, listen, we're only going to give these out for, and if they run out, they run out. And because it would really stink if we were haphazardly just putting them out everywhere and come community day, only have 10. So we need to be
agreed
about how we're rationing and wisely handing out, the numbers. The other thing is that, people are vacationing in the summer. Yes, they're on the trail, but I would just add it to the June schedule and maybe even have a list of what do we have in town on days that we know we want them and how many would we want at those events. So without putting them out in the library or in the post offices or in the town hall, how many do we need to have reserved for ourselves on our event days from July 1 to June 1 in our fiscal year. And then we'll know really how many we have to last us when we go out to, how many we can give out to the library or how many we can give out in the town hall. Having gone to camp fairs, there's nothing worse to getting to May and being like, I've got no camp brochures left, because we got these really nice glossy printed camp brochures and I'm handing out, I'm like, yeah, come to camp. Here's my business card. Like,
yeah, I can tell you that Thompson, all of the towns are getting 6,000 except one, which is Columbia. They bought in at a lower rate. So it's,
again, do we want to
just so you know that's what we're getting.
Yeah. Do we want to give out 6,000 over a year? Or do we want to try to make that last 3 years and really think about how many would we realistically, do we know we would hand out at events? And how many do we want to say we're going to give, every quarter to the other places replenishing, coming up with some kind of schedule.
Distribution plan.
Yeah, and the other good thing is we know what they cost, right? Because I'm the one who assembled the quotes. So they're about 50 cents a piece when you get to the 6,000 level. So it's also a decision of how often do we want to spend $3,000 to update them.
Right. And
now we've purposefully made it. Go ahead, Leslie.
That's a question for the group too, because you did this as a combined, 7 out of the 9 towns or 9 out of the 10, whatever the number was.
7 out of 12 airline trail towns.
So I think that's a question for the group too, if we say, because what if one town blows through all of them in a year and then is like, okay, I want to reorder, but it's going to cost them more. So I think asking the group realistically, when do they see us revamping it, or maybe trying to pull another town in? Is that in 2 years, or is that in 3 years? Is that in 1 year? And then that'll give us an idea. Okay, well, we want to have these for 2 years and give them out over 2 years. And in 2 years from now, we might order another 6,000 and pull in another town, or 3 years from now, or 4 years from now, whatever that, I don't know, or 6 years, I don't know, whatever that number is. But I don't know, maybe some towns are thinking every year and we're thinking every 4 years, I don't know.
Well, and there is some flexibility in the program built in that way. Once Quinn and Harry has the templates, we're going to own ours.
Right.
We're going to have access to that, right? So if towns do blow through them at different rates, they may take the option to, order them more frequently, less frequently, whatever. And we've got, with the templates in hand, we can certainly pull towns in at this point while we've got the design consultant. But even if we don't, as long as Quinn and Harry provides to Connecticut RC&D the master kinds of templates to plug and go, then we can always bring people in.
Yeah.
So it was designed intentionally to allow people to reorder and come in late, all that stuff.
Good. Thanks.
It's also being designed in a way so that we can update things on the website, and that what's
Right.
on the printed page is not outdated.
Great.
And
Correct.
That's a real smart move that we're going with that. But I like what Terry just said. If we do find that we're using more, or if we decided we wanted to print up, even if they weren't Z-fold, but maps that we could feel we could, put out on the airline trail, boy, they disappear fast out there, as I'm sure Brian LaFrido will testify.
That's truly why I'm
They're
talking.
popular. They're popular. They go in a hurry.
Right.
But-
That's why I'm talking about really understanding how many do we want to give out a quarter, and really knowing what our need is, because, like you were saying, that airline trail brochure went fast, and we need to think about what what are the best places to give that out, and is a color brochure the best thing to put out, where you're getting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of visitors, or are we reserving these for more in libraries and in the town hall, or handing out at events, or what's the best utilization for them? So
one idea that I did have was to approach the Last Green Valley ahead of their Walktober publication, and have each town send a set amount that they could randomly, possibly, and I got to see if this is cost effective for them, so this is just an idea, booger glue those to the inside cover of the Walktober books.
Mhm.
So, and if they're randomized, here you are living in Thompson, maybe you'll get one for Portland, which is the furthest away point. Maybe you'll get one in Thompson, but somebody in Portland may also get one for Thompson, or one for, so it's both randomized and targeted at the same time, because it's people who are interested in the kinds of things that Walktober is promoting.
Or to think about too, asking the Last Green Valley, well, what are some of their big Walktober events that we want to hand them out to the people that attend that event, or events that the Last Green Valley attends that we don't attend, that they should have some available,
That, or things like First Friday in Putnam, or Second Saturday in Danielson,
Yeah.
where crowds are expected to be gathering anyway.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that we won't know until a year goes by, but I would suggest that if we take the total number we have and set half of those aside and say only for emergency, don't open these boxes unless we absolutely use the other 3,000, we should be able to pace ourselves pretty well.
Yes, I agree.
And the other thing, and I'm just going to screen share here for a second, the important piece of work that's going to come out of this project for us is, and this ties back to the marketing piece, is this, because this is where that QR code takes you right now, right? This is the page that we're going to apply that, if we bring Sullivan and Lashane or anybody else on, this is what needs to be our gateway page in our entry. So we've obviously got a lot to work here, a lot of work to do here. The where to eat does link to this. Serviceable, okay, less urgent for my way of thinking than this. Right, so let's get that branded stuff in here. Let's see what we can do. And I know Renee is talking to Civic Plus about this. I don't know what the status of those conversations is right now, but just to let you know where our back end work is going to fall following this project. It's there. What's next, Leslie?
Continued review of website. The only other thing I'll add to that continued review of website is the calendar is up on the town page. So I know Renee has reached out to other organizations, encouraging them to, we have like a kind of like a Google form where they can fill in their information so that we know to then populate it into that calendar. Tira and I went to a Lions Club meeting last night. They were very interested in that and getting their events on there. But I am just excited that it will be, like we've talked about for a long time, a place to go to see things that are happening in Thompson. And I hope it's also a place that people go to really know what's going on so that they can either schedule an event so that it enhances another organization's event, or, and so that it doesn't, divide any groups in half as to picking and choosing which event they might go to. So it's a good thing good resource to have. So I'm excited about that community calendar. And the next thing on the schedule, which we could have talked about with the 65 Main, is the community garden, which you kind of already talked about. So.
Yeah, just a little bit. I mean, it is active and being used. We'd like to see more activation. The youth groups still have to get over there. I think the Girl Scout schedule was such that now is the time when they're starting to turn their attention to that. It was actually a pretty crummy April for planting anyway. And those are just ongoing conversations. Before we leave that topic of the marketing and the website, Santos, I know that's one of your topics that you're specifically interested in, and thank you for coming in. And so I just wanted to give you the opportunity to comment there.
Yeah, no, I was going to say something at the end here that I apologize to the EDC group for missing the last meeting because I wanted to present a little bit more information. At the next EDC meeting, I'll have something a little bit more outlined. And it's pretty much coming off the premise of your previous email here from a month or two ago, kind of assigning roles and responsibilities and coming up with some draft descriptions and stuff like that we had kind of outlined before. But I should have that for the next EDC meeting. I've just been so slamming with this work stuff that I just haven't had time to do it. So I apologize for missing that last meeting, but hopefully hit it up on the next one.
Very good. Yacino, do you have something? Your mic just came live.
I'm okay. I'm just listening.
That was
That
good.
wasn't me.
The dog has occasionally caused friction with meetings. We are amused to report.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
It's okay. The community garden was the next thing. I mean, that's just underway, right? Again, we'd like to get more in there. Everything's slow to start, but the people who are involved are excited and happy to have it. And like I say, there are tomato plants in the beds that weren't there the last time, or not the last time, but the time before that I went. And we'll just keep plugging at it, keep talking it up. Anything? What's else on there, Leslie?
Member comments and new business, which you've got nothing, correspondence, and the member comments. The only other thing I have is, I know that when we did our logo and things, like phase one was, internal, and which we've kind of done. We've gotten it on our letterheads, our emails, we've working on our website and things. Somebody asked about, if we were going to be having any shirts with the logo, the shirts with the logo on them. And I thought it might be, good for this committee to think about, really for Community Day, an opportunity to show off the new logo and the branding piece, and having that available for folks who are, whether it's a separate booth or whether it's at the information booth that Thompson Together and Rec have, or just some way to show that off. And I think we, maybe I can think. We definitely will be adding it to the Community Day sign. But if we're having like stickers or magnets or something that is getting that logo out there, kind of being the phase two, and something we could add to maybe the June meeting to talk about.
Yeah, that would be a good addition for June, partly because we'll be looking at the end of our fiscal year budget, and if we need to shift anything around. I will remind this group that EDC does now have an income account. So if we make T-shirts and sell them, there is a place for those funds to go. So it can fund itself, although obviously the initial outlay would have to come out of a budget item somewhere.
And before we get into that meeting in June, I'll show that in June, but T-shirts are a difficult thing, as they do, sizing and stuff. But definitely, could be an appeal, but, yeah, we'll talk in June, I guess, about ideas of things to really get the logo into people's homes and people thinking about it and recognizing it when they see it, and feeling proud of it. So.
Yeah. Thompson swag.
Yeah.
Anything else, guys? Comments from the gallery?
One quick note, maybe we could get an article in Hartford Courant or the Norwich, or the shop, local, the Villager, about the logo, and get it out there. Just a rebranding effort. Thompson is on the move, kind of a thing, so that it is more visible to a wider area.
We did send a press release out when we had the formal rollout. We did get some cross coverage. Villager did. The Villager doesn't really have staff writers. So they might have one or two.
Yeah.
Most of the articles they are publishing, except for the occasional thing on the very front cover, and the editorials are, I'm pretty sure, exactly that. People are sending press releases and they are opting to print them verbatim. That works well for us. For the wider reach stuff, those press contacts are on the list that Sullivan and Lashane gave me. So every time I send a press release, it goes to all of those outlets, and they have the option to pick that up. We get the most traction, obviously, from the Villager, Winnie. We have occasionally had some public publicity that goes out through the bulletin, but it's definitely got to be a wider interest story for that to get that coverage. But I send them constantly. I sent two out this week. I sent one on Monday. I sent one yesterday. I'm sure I'm going to have another one going out by the end of the week for something. But we definitely get the most traction from the most local sources.
Okay, just a thought.
I think maybe Charlie, what kind of sparked that comment in my mind is thinking about inviting them to Community Day. Sending a press release is one thing, but calling them up and saying we'd like you to attend. If you're available to send someone out. This is going to be a big event, and we could do that for the Maker Faire next year. Gary came to the event, but that was because he knows where to be. He had a feeling, that it was going to be big, and he wanted to support us, and he's out and about. That was, sometimes you do have to pay for him to come to your events and give you that kind of press. And sometimes he shows up. So we were lucky that he He showed up on Saturday, but yeah, I think inviting somebody from the Norwich Bulletin or inviting somebody, even from a paper out in Worcester, to come to an event in the future, I think would be a good suggestion for us to consider and take into account.
Yeah, the Telegram is on my list as well, and I have personal contacts at the Telegram in the arts and culture columns, but it's got to be a very strong event to get somebody down here from Worcester for sure, and that's closer than Hartford.
Yeah.
So just to keep your expectations sort of in line, that we are more likely to get sort of casual social media network free extended media from some of those wider reach stuff, unless it's truly newsworthy. Like, what happened with the NIPS thing last year, right? With the Norwich Bulletin, that press and that coverage, we got all kinds of effectively unearned media from that because of, the connection that we made with Three Tiers for Connecticut, and Gary O was really active in pushing that, and now I think you guys have all seen the Connecticut Recyclers Coalition is pushing that survey about adding NIPS to the bottle bill in this cycle. So because it ties into something we've already done, we can also cross-promote that, and it works to bolster efforts we made last year. So if you haven't filled that survey out, by the way, I encourage you to do, and share it, because it works the other way too, right? Like, we share things to other people to share on our behalf. When people are sharing things with us that fit in with what we are doing, we should also be promoting those efforts. Anybody else?
No?
Nope.
I'll entertain a motion.
Move to adjourn?
We need the other Brian to second it.
I think we do need the other Brian to second it.
Okay, I had to find my mute button. I second.
Good work, everybody. Sorry that I couldn't share the draft. I'm so disappointed, but this being locked out on my work system is such a nuisance. So we will see you. Well, we'll see almost everybody here in 2 weeks at EDC, and next week at the Trainwreck Park workshop. Mark your calendars, please.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. One more, I know we've already adjourned, but one more thing, the affordable housing I knew I was forgetting something. Take the affordable housing survey if you haven't already, because that's another thing we want lots and lots of participation on, because that project is now ongoing. That survey is going to be open for the month of May.
We filled out a hard copy of it in our household, but only one. Is that available electronically to post?
You bet your bippy. If you go to, it's a Survey Monkey, and I believe they already posted it on the Facebook page. But if you remind me, Charlie, tomorrow, since I can't do it right now, I'll also send it to you.
All right. Thanks. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.